For our methods of solving, we haven't talked about how to solve via factoring, which is what Andrea is doing. So Andrea's process is correct. Emil's process is also correct, except until this point.
What?
They forgot the plus minus. So they would have gotten the same answer. The only thing is they have that 8 on the outside. So if they both graphed it, they should get the same thing, but the zeros would be different.
Originally, I thought Andrea did it wrong because plus in the minus 72. I'm like, what? But then because I thought it's divided by 8.
Yeah. So Emil could have moved 72 over. But if we're trying to get x squared by itself, they'd have to move it back. So it would be a redundant step.
It's for me, I tried doing the Khan Academies over the weekend. It was f of x equals this, and I'm like, I didn't know you could rewrite that f of x to a 0. And I'm like,
yes.
Oh.
So f of x is the same as y. So if you think about it like that, all of our equations are usually equal to 0, and that's why. But Emil was the wrong one because they forgot plus and minus. Then all the others we haven't talked about, so you could put all of those in Desmos. So you would type it in exactly as you see it, the entire thing. 2x squared minus 3x equals 4. And it will give you 2 sets of solutions. And you would write x equals curly brackets negative 0.851 and 2.351.
So you always keep 3, what is it, 3 digits? Yeah. 2 to 3, either one. I forgot what I just said. So 3 is great, 2 is fine, more than that is fine. Same thing for number 3. So this would now be 3x squared minus 8x. Plus 5, but now equals 0. You would have 1 and 1.667. It probably rounds or keeps repeating, but it just rounded itself. And then same thing for the last one, except now it has fractions. So 1/2 x squared minus 1/4 x minus 2. So negative 1.766 and 2.266. Questions on those? For the notes we're going to use today, if you don't have your calculator, go grab that. And you can start writing. Include the rough sketches. Check this out.
possibility. It doesn't have to be perfect. Anyone still need these two? Once everyone has the sketches, I'll scroll down a little bit more. I'm still drawing this part. Now I'm going to go back and talk through everything, what these things mean, what they are, and things like that. So we know that this unit is all about quadratics. Today we're going to graph quadratics. Here, this should look somewhat familiar because all of your quadratic equations are going to be written in this form, ax squared plus bx plus c, but with y equals or f of x at the front. Should look familiar because that last part is the trinomials from when we were factoring. When we graph them, they're going to make this U shape, which is called a parabola. And then some things to keep in mind as we start to graph them. When you're looking at your a value, the number in front of x squared, if it's positive, your parabola, your u is going to face up. When it's negative, it's going to face down. And then these last two things are more so Algebra 2 concepts, but it's good practice for when you get there. The axis of symmetry is going to be a line that you don't really see, but it's going to be a line that cuts your parabola or your u in half. And I'm going to show you a couple different ways on how to find that algebraically in your calculator. Algebraically, we're going to be using this formula, x equals negative b over 2a. When we get into our last lesson, that will come back into play also. The vertex is going to fall on your axis of symmetry. It's either going to be the lowest point, your minimum, or your highest point, your maximum. So before we do an example, do you have questions on any of those? Also, if you didn't write these two things, make sure you write that also. So we're going to do the first example at the bottom. We're going to do the first two algebraically, then I'll show you how to do it in a calculator. So first I'm going to label these A, B, and C. This will be good practice for our last lesson that we're going to do in this unit also, because we'll have to do this there too. And then we know we're going to do negative b over 2a. So you would take your b value, your 8, make it negative, and put that over 2 times, what's your a value? 1. And then simplify. So whether by hand in your calculator, doesn't matter. We have negative 8 over 2, which simplifies to be. So our axis of symmetry would be x equals negative 4. Then we're going to use that to help us find our vertex. Our y value helps us find our vertex. So we're going to take that x value and put it in for every x we see. I would use parentheses. Make sure your square is outside of those parentheses. And you can either put the whole strand of numbers in your calculator, figure out what that is, or do each piece separately. I'm going to do it by hand. If you want to do it in your calculator, that's fine. So this would be positive 16 minus 32 plus 15. We subtract and then add those numbers together. What would y be? Negative 1. So then we would write those two as an ordered pair as your vertex. Negative 4, negative 1. Okay. Then, using all this information, we can draw a rough sketch of this. So draw in your x and y axes. Draw in your vertex. So 4 to the left, down 1. We're going to draw in the axis of symmetry, but it's dotted because it's not actually there. You won't actually see it. It's just so you can imagine where it would be. So that would be a a vertical line, since it's x equals, going back to when we were graphing and writing, talking about wavelengths. And then if we're looking at our a value, is that positive or negative? Our a value? Positive. So is this going to face up or down?
Up.
Up. So I'm going to write this. You don't have to write this, but if it helps you, do it. So a is greater than 0 or a is positive. So this would face up. So from our vertex, we're going to draw like a U shape facing up. What questions do we have so far?
Lots.
Once we get the hang of it, it'll go faster.
It's at least not like the last thing I'm going to say. What is it? What was that called?
Factoring.
Factoring. It's not like
Yes.
factoring. It's like you're the...
Which negative? Oh, this. It's in the formula. It's always negative b over 2x. So no matter what, it's always negative. Other questions? Precious. not x, the number in front of x squared. Did that answer the question you were about to ask? Yeah. Other questions before we move on? Okay. You look like you have a question.
Just trying to figure out if x is the axis of symmetry, so when you find that, just put that into the way that x is in the
Equation, yep. To help us find our y for the vertex.
and then the number in front of the x is what we put in for a.
Correct. Okay. So, like I said earlier, I'm going to show you how to do it algebraically, and then I'm going to show you how to do it in the calculator. Alright, on the next page, number 2. We're going to do the same thing. So, label your A, B, and C so you know which ones they are. So then we'd have negative B, or negative 10, over 2 times negative 1. So this would give us negative 10 over negative 2, which would be what? Positive 5. So x equals 5 would be our axis of symmetry. And then we would use that to find our vertex. So put 5 in for all of your x's. Be careful with this negative here. Still put your 5 in parentheses, but the negative is outside of it. So this would be positive 25, but it has a negative, so it becomes negative plus 50 minus 23. What would that be? Positive 2. So how would we write our vertex?
Wait.
Yes. 5, 2. So then draw a rough sketch. Plot your vertex. Axis of symmetry would be along that line at 5. Would this face up or down?
Down.
Down, because A is negative. So from your vertex, draw a U that's facing down. Questions so far? And I'm going to show you how you could do this process in the calculator. And after I show you this, you'll have a choice of whether you want to do it algebraically or in the calculator. Algebra 2, you'll just be doing it algebraically, so keep that in mind. Algebra 2, you'll just be doing this algebraically, not on the calculator. But I'm giving you a choice.
Wait, so why can't we do it on a calculator and on the table?
Because you'll need to show that you know how to find axis of symmetry and vertex by hand. Really, we don't have to learn that, but it's easier to graph it if we know it. Okay. First, reset your calculator. Second plus 712. I have the steps written over here in red. I'm also going to talk through them. They'll be on my calculator as well. I can reset my calculator too. Oh no, I did not. Right, so first step is always going to be put your equation into y equals. So go into y equals. and type in what we're on 3, the equation for number 3. You can use the button by alpha for x. X squared minus 12x plus 5. Yes. Well, I will talk about that in a second.
Wait, Miss Look, how do you do the x again?
This one right here? So I skipped this one. 4, 3. Would this face up or would this be down?
Down.
Up.
Yep.
So because this is facing up, will our vertex be the lowest point, the minimum, or the highest point, the maximum?
Minimum.
So we're going to do the graph method, then the table method. So graph it. You should be able to see it if you, like for other examples, if you don't see it in your window, you either need to change your window, zoom in or out, or you'll have to do the table method, either or. Then we're going to go into second trace because our calculator will find our minimum or maximum for us. We said it was a minimum, so we're going to go to 3. Second trace, and then I just hit 3. Or you can scroll down to 3 and hit enter.
Yeah, this stuff I really prefer this stuff on paper.
Okay. So after you get this, it'll ask you about something left bound, right bound. That's like the same thing we were doing when we were finding intercepts. So we know our minimum is going to be here. You could probably look and see where that is. But just to make sure, pick some number to the left of this point. Doesn't matter. I'm going to choose 0 and hit enter. And then some number to the right of that point. So I could choose like 5, 10, it doesn't matter. And hit enter. Then it'll ask, do you want to guess? I don't. I want it to do the work. So I'm going to hit enter again. And it'll tell you what the answer is, the vertex. Only issue is it does this. I don't know why. That's really just 2. So our vertex would be at 2, -7. So our axis of symmetry would be what? X equals 2. So then from this information, we could graph this or do the rough sketch. We know our point is going to be at +2, -7. Our axis of symmetry is at 2. That was forbidden. And we know this goes up, so from your vertex through all your views. The work for this would be, you did it on the graph. So you could say found on graph.
That's it.
That's it. We're going to go back and do this same problem but in the table so you see how to do that. So it's already in your calculator. Go into second graph. That's where your table is. And you'll see that your y values start to repeat. Like here I see -4, -4, 5, 5. If I scroll up, I should see 20 and 41 and 68 and 101. Okay. So your y values repeat. You need to find where they stop repeating in the middle. So they stop repeating at 2, -7. So if you did it by the table, you would just say found in the table. Questions so far before we do another one? Questions? Into the white equals. You were supposed to reset your calculator. That's why. But just type it in. So we're gonna do another one. But we'll switch the order. We'll do table first, then graph. So let's do 5. So go back into y equals. You can either clear it out and retype or type over what's already there. Negative x squared minus 4x minus 2. Then we're going to go into the table, second graph. You may have to scroll up or down to see where your y values are repeating. Where's the middle?
Negative 2, 2.
So I've been getting a lot of negative 1, 1, but if you see another y value that's repeating, that's not the middle. So it cannot have another repeat at all. So negative 2, 2 is the middle, yes. That is our vertex. So our axis of symmetry is what? X equals negative 2. Would this face up or down?
Down.
I'm sorry, I wrote that on the wrong one, but yes.
Yeah.
So then our vertex would be a minimum or a maximum?
Max.
Maximum, yes. That'll be helpful for when we do the graph. So you could do your rough sketch now. Plot your point at negative 2, 2.
It goes up. Right? Up.
This one?
No, down. Yeah,
It does go down.
Mm-hmm.
Draw in your axis of symmetry at negative 2. And then draw your view facing down. And then to check yourself or to show it in the graph, I'm going to graph it. So just hit graph. And then second trace. But now we're looking for a maximum, so 4 instead of 3. But this process is the same. Find some number to the left of this, so like negative 5. Some number to the right of this, so like 2, 0. Any of those would work. And then hit enter again. And again, it did the decimal thing, but it is negative 2, 2. Okay. And then just to see, who likes the algebraic method better?
On paper, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Oh my god, yes.
Who likes the graph method better? Or the table method? Okay. It's up to you. So again, you will have a choice of how you want to find it. The axis of symmetry, not necessarily needed. The vertex is needed. So you'll have to show me whether you found that on the graph, on the table, or algebraically.
Wait, so if we found it on like the calculator, we would just write found in calculator.
Found in graph or table.
Okay.
of these remaining problems, 4, 6 through 10, which ones do we want to see, go over, have questions about?
What about number 9?
Okay.
I guess because that has 2.
Okay. 8. Also has 2, but different. Okay. Any others? Sure. Alright, so for number 7, how should we do this? Algebraically in the graph, in the table. You can pick because you chose all. Okay. Alright, so 7 we're doing algebraically. Find our axis of symmetry.
Wait, so if it's already a negative, would it be positive 24? Or?
Yes. We would still put negative, negative.
Okay.
So negative 24 over 2 times negative 3. And then simplify. So this would be positive 24 over negative 6. Which would be what?
Negative 4.
Negative.
And x equals negative 4.
X equals negative 4. Okay, so then we can use that to find our vertex. So y equals negative 3 times negative 4 squared minus 24 times negative 4 minus 42. I'm going to put that all in my calculator at once. So if you are on your calculator, if you hit second mode, it will take you back to the home screen. I think that's right.
Huh? Okay, I did something wrong. This got 198.
Double check your numbers. Did you say nurse or counselor? Double check all your negatives. Do they match?
Yeah, wait, negative 3 times 4 is 1. I got 141 plus.
So you would square it first, then multiply. So it'd be positive 16 times negative 30.
Oh.
So then our vertex would be negative 4, 6. And then we can do our sketch. The order in some of these things doesn't matter. So like if you find whether A goes up or down first or last, doesn't matter. Our axis of symmetry would go through that point. Would this face up or down?
Down.
Down. Because A is negative. So from your point, draw your view to face down. Who chose 8?
I did. Wait. No.
You chose 9.
Yeah.
So was that you again? Okay. So method for this one. Okay. So here, even though we only have 2 terms, we still have an A and a B.
Would C be plus 0?
C is going to be 0. But we don't really need C in this. So we have negative 4 over 2 times negative 1. Or negative 4 over negative 2, which is
Positive 2.
positive 2. X equals 2 would be our axis of symmetry. And then use that to find your vertex. Be careful with your negatives, because there will be a negative. This wasn't supposed to be negative. Yeah, this should just be true. So this would be negative 4 plus 8, or just 4. So your vertex would be 2, 4. Before we do our sketch, would this face up or down? So we face down. So then draw in your sketch. Vertex would be 2, 4.
Wait, this is I'm confused. Where'd you get negative 4 from?
Oh, because this would be positive 4, but it had a negative in front already. Your axis of symmetry would be at 2, and this would face down. And then, Franco, last one, method of your choice.
Algebraically.
Okay. What is our B value here?
Wouldn't it be
0. We don't have one. So when you set this up, it would be negative 0 over 2 times 1, which is
0?
0. So anytime you don't have a B, your axis of symmetry is going to be 0. And then if we put 0 back in,
It's just negative 3.
it is just negative 3. Would this face up or down? Up.
Yeah.
And then draw your rough sketch. We have a point at 0, negative 3. Since your y-axis is your axis of symmetry, I'm just going to highlight over it. And then draw your U facing up. What questions do we have so far? So now we know the basics on how to get the rough sketch. Now we're going to actually graph it. So once you have this down, go to the next step. And if you like the algebraic method, we'll do that for some, but also have to use the calculator. It's easier with some of the calculator portions. You'll see why here in a second. Okay, so with this first one, still find your axis of symmetry like normal. What's your B value? 0. So your axis of symmetry is going to be what?
0.
X equals 0. If I put that into our vertex, what would our y be?
0.
Also 0. So our vertex is going to be 0, 0. The table, you're going to put this in the middle. And then you're going to go on your x's backwards and forwards. So backwards, we have -1, -2. Forwards, 1, 2. This part is where I'm going to suggest you use your calculator. You are more than welcome to do this by hand, but it will take time. If you're doing this by hand, you would have to take each of these x values, put them into your equation each time, and find your y value each time. Up to you if you want to do that. For this problem, it would be easy, but once you have more numbers, it'll be a lot of work. So I'm going to put this in the calculator. And look at my table. So once you get that in, second graph. And I'm going to find the values from my table that I need, which was -2, -1, 1, and 2, which would be 4, 1, 1, 4. Really, once you know half of it, you know the other half because they have to be the same. Once you have all 5 of your points, then you would graph them. So I will start off at my vertex 0, 0, and then go -1, 1, -2, 4. Then it should mirror on the other side, 1, 1, and 2, 4. You want to do more than 5 points, go for it, but you need at least 5. And then you would draw in your U from your vertex. If you want to draw in your axis of symmetry so you can still see where that was, you can. Axis of symmetry isn't necessary when you draw in your graph. What you need is your vertex and how you found it, algebraically from the graph from the table, and your 5 points and your graph.
This sort from how do you find like that table thing again?
Second graph. And then just look for your values. Other questions on that before we talk about domain and range? So domain and range is not something you'll be tested on this unit, but it's good practice for when you're tested next unit. So we're going to do it. So domain is all your x values, furthest left to furthest right. So if I'm looking at this furthest left, this is going to keep going up and slightly left off the graph. And then same thing to the right. It's going to keep going up and slightly right off the graph. So if it keeps going in both directions, it's going to go to negative and positive infinity. So we're going to write that one of two ways. You can either write it in set builder notation, which looks weird. So it'll be curly brackets, x this line, and then x this weird e and this weird r. So that means x is an element, of all real numbers. Or you can write it how we've been writing it with our inequalities. From negative infinity to infinity. Okay. Do whichever one you want. As a hint, all of your quadratics will have the same domain. Negative infinity to positive infinity, unless we do something to it, which we in this class are not. Range, however, is different. It's lowest to highest. Here is your lowest point at 0, and then it keeps going up. So in set builder notation, that would be everything above 0 or y is greater than or equal to 0. Or in interval notation, it would start at 0 and it's closed, but keeps going to infinity. Questions on domain? We'll do one more and be done for today. Did I say 2? I think I said 3, but I don't remember. I did say 3. Okay. So let's do 3. And we'll start doing this one algebraically. In 2 classes, when we come back to this, finish these, we'll do it in the calculator. So we have A, B, and C. So this would be negative 8 over 2 times negative 1. Or 8 over negative 2. So our axis of symmetry would be what?
-4.
X equals -4. So we know the vertex, the x part of the vertex is going to be -4. We also know that this is going to be -4. So once you start finding things, you could start putting things together. Really, you could fill in your x values from here, but we'll do that in a second. And then let's do the work to find y. So put in -4 for all your x's. Here, be careful with your negatives. You have one and it's negative. What would your y value be? So when you fill in your x's, still go backwards and forwards. Backwards would be -5, -6. Forwards, -3, -2. And then again, you could take all of your x's, -6, -5, -3, -2, put them in for x and do what we just did to find each y value. Or put it in your graph. Put it in your y equals. I probably forgot what that is. And then go into your table, second graph. So then your values would be -5, -2, and then it would repeat. And then you can graph those 5 points. So the vertex is -4, -1. And then I have -5, let's use -2, -6, -5. And then it should be the same on the other side, -3, -2, and -2, -5. What would your domain be?
-1.
Left or right? It's not going to change from last time.
Negative infinity.
Domain will always be the same. Range is the one you have to look out for. So now this starts negative infinity. It keeps going down, and it has a highest point instead of a lowest point. It has a maximum. So this would, I'll write it both ways, be everything below -1. So y is less than or equal to -1. Or starts at negative infinity and goes to -1. For the remainder of class, I would suggest doing Khan Academy. If you haven't done any of the ones that were assigned on Friday, you now have 5 due on Friday, the 3 from last Friday, and the 2 from today. So work on those, work on practice in these notes. Let me know if you have questions.